16.1 Roles, Responsibilities and Skills. Roles. Motivator. When motivating younger kids, you would use more simplistic technical instruction and a lot of encouragement. But when the level was a lot higher, more elite and older, then a lot more aggressive approach from the coaches taken, because for some it helps them perform better, but for a younger child they would most probably be scared and shy away from challenges and not want to be coached, and perhaps not even want to go to the club and play that sport anymore. Role model. Age here is an important factor. Younger kids imitate things that are impressed by more than older people. So if the role model does anything like smoke, then it would encourage younger kids to smoke, as they would copy their person they look up to, who they try to copy. For someone who is older, a role model is less important, but if they have a role model, things like smoking won't encourage them as they know better. Because as you're older, there's people you would probably look up to or something and get motivation from, but otherwise everything is self-driven. Trainer. The main factor here is a team compared to individual sports. When training an elite football team, the trainer will train each player individually, but at a lower level than the trainer would help the team all together, rather than be specific to each player. In individual sports, a trainer at a low level would help you out all around, but at a higher level, you would have specialists in different areas, and the trainer would study your performance and work to improve plans around it. Friend. At a Sunday league football team, um, after the game, you could mention, the coach could say to a few of the players or to the entire team about going to the beer for a pub, and the language used most probably contains profanity. But at a younger age, such as 10-year-old gymnastics, the coach would not treat the young girls in the same way, but would be nice, encouraging, laugh around with them perhaps, but definitely not asking them if they want to go out for a drink. Responsibilities. Legal obligation. The coach is legally obliged to protect their athletes within their health and safety. The coach must have important, appropriate insurance that covers public liability and personal accident. Although also the coach is not advised to transport the athletes in personal vehicles, but are in a licensed minibus. Once the athlete is over 18, then these rules don't apply. For example, a coach isn't advised to take an under 10 basketball team in his personal vehicle, but allowed to take, for example, an under 21 gymnast. If the athlete is under 18, then the coach must look for assistance of parents and guardians in order to sort the transport out to games or events, etc. Professional conduct. The coach must not pass any personal information to a third party without consent of the athlete. Boundaries. The coach must respect personal boundaries and know the limitations of the information they are allowed to discover about the athlete. Integrity. The coach should encourage the athlete to follow any rules and not to violate any, to avoid legal sanctions and problems. Abuse of privilege. A coach must not take advantage of a situation for personal gain. In an individual sport like tennis, the coach will know the athlete and will probably gain more like a friendship, meaning that the player will have probably told the coach or would have found out about some personal information about the athlete. In this case, the coach cannot reveal the information found out to third parties without consent, or maybe in case of an emergency, such as if he has any medical problems and he has to be rushed off to the hospital and the doctors must know, then in that case he has to release the information for the safety of the athlete. In a team sport like baseball, if the coach doesn't like an individual in the team and finds out personal information about the athlete, then the coach can hold this against the athlete, which would go into legal problems. Equal opportunities. There should not be any bias or discrimination, especially on grounds of gender, race, age, or disability, or religion or anything like that. All individuals should be given the same information and the same opportunities, regardless of their differences. In a sporting example, at a lower level standard of sport with young kids, there is most likely to be many differences between the children, such as gender and ethnicity, such as a local basketball club in an urban area. This is an example where the coach could take advantage of these rules, as they might be a race or a gender that the coach doesn't like, which would lead to exclusion or discrimination. As the standard of sports gets higher and the athletes are older, this type of issue is less from the coaches is less common, because the coaches are there as they love coaching no matter what the differences are. Because at a lower level they're just volunteers, not actually getting paid, as they know what they're fully qualified, know what they're doing. Health and safety. The coach needs to ensure the safety of athletes and prevent harm to the athlete. If anything does, they must have access to first aid facilities and equipment, contact the emergency services, spot risks and hazards using a risk assessment and a PARQ, and lastly, prescribe a suitable warm-up on cool-down. Health and safety is integral, be it an independent or team sport, or if they're older or younger. When the athletes are younger, there's a high chance of injury because they are a lot excited and out of control and could do something like run into one another or slip or, have many injuries like that. However, in older age groups, when they become more elite and more go up higher in sport, um, in older age groups, physicality depending on the sport increases, such as rugby. At a younger age, the athletes do tag rugby. As you get older, semi-contact and full contact. So then, there's a lot more chance of injury as you're ramming into each other. Also, as you get older, the training gets more intensive, which means that the things like strains and breakages are more common, so health and safety is very important. For example, if a tennis player gets injured from something like overtraining their muscles just before a tennis open, they can't play and instead have to rest and go through rehabilitation. Skills. Organisation. Before an event, the equipment, opposition, risk assessment, players attending, and money for officials must all be organised before the event and level of play. At any level of play. During the event, the groups and equipment for the next activity all must be organised, and then after the event, clearing the equipment and getting players home must be organised. At a professional level, such as the NBA, people are paid to organise things for example, a cleaning staff will be hired to clear the equipment, and the manager will pay the players and coaches. At a lower level, parents, guardians, and coaches organise the players attending, paying officials, groups, equipment, and getting players home. The organisation of this event and money, such as renting out a hall and sorting out the opposition, is up to the chairman of the club. Um, this example is very common at young age groups in like football or basketball. The rest, like travel and stuff like that, is left with their coaches and uh, parents. Problem solving. This is the ability to react to certain situations quickly to get a suitable outcome, whether it is before the event or during the event. This can be things like players' disputes during games or training, being short on players before an event, tactics not working, or whether there is an injury during or before the session. In an individual sport such as trampolining, the coach might have an issue because the trampolinist got injured before the event. Then the coach will have to decide whether it's okay for the athlete to continue or or to rest it or not. In a team sport, it could be things like if there was not enough players available for a rugby game, then the coach will have to decide whether or not to postpone the game or to continue, depending on the squad and if they have numbers or not. Lastly, analysis. This is looking at data collected from a match/training session with the player in question, such as shots on target, passes completed, tackles made, and there's obviously more specialised things depending on the sport. This is objective which the player can't argue with, so it can be used to create an overview on how the player is playing and how to improve that player. For example, in a team sport such as NBA basketball, there is a pay team of analyzers which calculate percentages and statistics for each individual player, for which the coach just takes in and creates a plan. At a lower level, such as local league hockey games, the score sheet is probably used because to calculate the statistics, you need specialized technology or apps, which is expensive. So something more cheap still does the same job, but it's just a lot harder to do it if it's a team sport, because it's hard to do everyone in the team at once, so you need not more people to do it if you're just using pen and paper. But in an individual sport, equipment can be used, but it's a lot easier to calculate percentages as it is only for one player. So, like for example, in tennis, let's say if you were working out these percentages, then you could just do that on pen and paper because you're only looking at it for one player.